At a number 10 spot, we have the Silent Hill series. Probably the most iconic one on this list, the Silent Hill series is one of the most disturbing nightmare situations in a game. The music, the atmosphere, the story, the monsters. It seems like this game took over the horror genre and just made it its own. Silent Hill was published by Konami back in 1999. It is a psychological horror franchise, and much of the game deals with the actions people take and the way they justify it using guilt, anger, or manifesting it to be something bigger. So just to make things clear, the first 4 games of this series were created by Japanese developers, and this includes Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, and Silent Hill 4 The Room. Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo had various developmental groups, and Team Silent was the one who developed these specific 4 games. At a number 9 spot, we have Fatal Frame series. If you were looking for a game that implements Japanese culture, folklore with horror wrapped up in a nice story, then maybe Fatal Frame is for you. Fatal Frame, or Zero in Japan, is a survival game horror franchise with 5 installments, 2 spin-offs, 2 special editions, and a whole remake. These horrific games were developed by Japanese video game developers Tecmo, who has also released games like Dead or Alive, Deception, or Star Force. The game has you playing as a single character walking around a haunted location looking for clues and fighting ghosts with only a camera. It's called the camera obscura, and it's able to take pictures that normal humans can't see, kind of like a third eye to see spirits. Set in the 1980s Japan, this game takes place in Himura Mansion, where it's said that every 10 years a ritual involving sacrificing a young girl would take place. They would do this by detaching her from all worldly needs before sending her to the afterlife. Except 1 year it all failed because the young girl fell in love. This caused the family to believe they had dishonored themselves and the family, in which caused each and every single one of them to take their own life away by a traditional Japanese katana. Now their souls are trapped in this mansion for you to explore. At number 8 spot, we have The Evil Within. This is a game that is a very skilled reliant game in that every action and decision you take will actively change the world around you. So at times this game is pretty terrifying. The Evil Within, or Cycle Break in Japan, is a survival horror game developed by Tango Gameworks and published by Bethesda Softworks. It was released in October 2014 and released virtually on every single platform including PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. I'm sorry, Nintendo users. The story follows a guy named Sebastian who has to navigate himself through different chapters filled with these horrifying creatures and realistic needs, such as the need for resources in this game. Trust me, you need to find resources. But other than that, the real horror of this game comes from the whole atmosphere it sets in the Beacon Mental Hospital where a mass murder took place, and the psychological effects you get with every decision you make. At number 7 spot, we have Yamarari Night Alone. Yamorari is a puzzle-solving survival horror game developed by Nippon Ichi Software. The game I will be talking about is only one game of the Yamari series. Being released in October of 2015, the game received a lot of international praise. The story follows 2 young girls, Yu and Haru, who are headed home before they got separated by a vicious attacker. As the 2 get lost, they have to navigate themselves back home, but the path they travel is much more terrifying than their usual. You will be playing as both the girls, and each decision you make will impact the other girl. The way this game uses sound effects and lighting to emphasize their scares gives them a spot on this list for sure. Not to mention the unique and interesting ways to get through each of the stage of this game. This game is really worth the buy. At number 6 spot, we have The Calling. I kinda threw shade at Nintendo on my last point, so I had to mention one of their exclusives on this list. We have the game The Calling, or Kuroki Kokushin as it is in Japan. This survival horror game was developed by Hudson Soft and released on November 19, 2009. This game is extremely underrated on this list, and I personally think it deserved a spot for a lot of you guys to notice, at least in the horror section of gaming. The game would use your Nintendo Wii controller as a telephone and would randomly ring throughout the game. On the other end would be spirits, ghosts, demons, which is already scary of a concept if you ask me. Obviously the controller could also be used to interact with objects around, but definitely the phone idea, props to them. The game follows a group of characters exploring Mnemonic Abyss, which is a place between life and death, and from here they experience restless ghosts and creepy phone rings from spirits. spirits. On the hump of our list, we have Bloodborne. Created by the renowned Japanese developer From Software, Bloodborne is just as hard as its counterparts Dark Souls and Elden Ring from the same developer. Except Bloodborne definitely takes its spot as one of the most terrifying games along with its extreme difficulty. Released as a PS4 exclusive back in 2015, Bloodborne follows a hunter who's in charge of cleaning up the mess that a disease has caused on the citizens of Yharnam, causing them to be these oversized, superpowered humans, almost godlike. And yeah, lots of blood, lots and lots of blood. This gothic-inspired city harbors some of the most cruel enemies ever shown in horror games, along with the creepy atmosphere that follows you throughout the entirety of the game. My favorite thing about this game that sets them apart from others on this list is definitely their combat system. There are so many different weapon types that only add up to so many different combat strategies. This game allows you to go crazy and pull off combos, which is always something fun to do. And this definitely beats poking and weaving around the whole time. Dark Souls. At number 4 spot, we have Shadow Corridor. This survival indie game was created by a single man named Kazuki Joma, using the infamous Unreal Engine 4. It was released as a free-to-play on June 21st, 2017. In the beginning, you start off as a normal person walking happy across multiple old valleys of Japan. This until you get into a tunnel that transports you into a nightmare in a pure Spirited Away style. Inside this nightmare, you have to confront a world full of apparitions, no mask, and demons and creatures. As well, you have to collect items to survive and get to solve the mystery behind this nightmarish world. Another great point in favor of this game is that in order to unravel all of its secrets, you're going to be spending lots of hours finding hidden items, hidden rooms, collecting all special items, running against the clock to finish the stage, all sorts of things. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have Siren Blood Curse. Siren Blood Curse, or as it's known in Japan as Siren New Translation, is a stealth-based survival horror game developed by Sony's Japan studio. It was exclusive for PlayStation, so once again, Xbox fans have another one of those games that will never see the light of day. The game was later released in 2008. The story begins on August 3rd, 2007 and focuses on an American television crew that arrives in Japan to investigate and document the legend of Hanuda, a vanished village where human sacrifices are said to have taken place 30 years prior. The atmosphere in this game is very unique as well, and at a time in this game the Japanese village was stuck in a hell-like time loop and would often go split screen to show the two worlds of the living and the dead. The game was a remake of the American version, so it used a lot of Caucasian characters and voice actors despite its Japanese origin. This is definitely another unrated Japanese horror game on this list, and if you like being sneaky and quiet in a horror game, this one might be for you. At our number 2 spot, we have The Corpse Party. Another one of this list created by a single person. Corpse Party was published in 1996 spring, and it was made by 22-year-old college student Makoto Kaduan. Corpse Party is a survival horror game and adventure game that follows a group of friends performing a ritual, except this would instead send them to another dimension where they would be tormented by the ghosts of other children. During the game, you must be able to go through psychological and emotional screwing scenes and a story that will make you question your insanity at times. Along with a terrifying ambience, constant jump scares, unique puzzle, this game will definitely not disappoint. The reason I love this game so much is because it actually plays out like a visual novel almost. The character development and dialogue is what pushes this game to be one of the top contenders in the horror genre. And a great thing I appreciate is that they do add light moments to add relief, as this game will literally have you scared the whole time you play it. At our number 1 spot, we have The Clock Tower 3. I couldn't finish this list without adding one of the Japan's most iconic horror games, Clock Tower 3. Clock Tower 3 is a survival horror game that is co-produced by both Capcom and Sunsoft and made as an exclusive for PlayStation 2. The plot follows 14-year-old Alyssa as she tries to escape the menacing clock tower and the slaves inside of it. The majority of the game is played without the use of a weapon, relying instead of your ability to run through or dodge foes. The game has good graphics, mood, and scripting despite some repetitive mechanics and overall commercial failure. The fear comes from a general lack of ability to defend oneself and the ensuing dependency on fleeing or figuring out puzzles. The pressure is to come up with a solution as soon as possible before it's too late. Coming in at number 10, we have The Cursed Poem, or Tamino's Hell. Published by Japanese poet Seijo Yasu, it's said that one of his poems named Tamino's Hell is cursed and could kill or haunt people if read out loud. So just not to die, I'll be playing it safe and I'll just show you the poem rather than reading it. Yeah. In 1974, Japanese filmmaker Terayama Suji directed a movie based on Tamino's Hell. He ended up passing away in 1983. This is where people first believed the movie was cursed, since the poem was used and read in the movie. As time went by, people began forgetting about the incident. But then in 2004, one Japanese writer published a book based on the poem, saying, "If you by chance happen to read this poem out loud, after you will suffer from a terrible fate which cannot be escaped." It said that even hearing someone say the poem out loud could lead your life into disaster or even death. So let's read it out loud. I'm just kidding. Everyone relax. Nowadays this poem is feared internationally, but for those who remain skeptical, come on, give it a read. At number 9, we have Hitori Kakarenbo, solo hide and seek. The name directly translates to one man hide and seek. And as for the name suggests, it's a game where one person plays hide and seek. The instructions are thorough, so bear with me. Here's what you need to play. A stuffed toy with arms and legs, a red thread and a needle, rice, nail clippers, a box cutter, and a cup of salt water. The process is kinda complicated, so bear with me. To start, make sure you're home alone. Cut open the toy and take out the stuffings, replacing with rice and fingernail clippings. Sew it back with some red thread. Give the toy a name and be sure it's not your own. Then go find yourself a hiding place like a closet and place your saltwater cup in there. After that, go to the bathroom and fill your tub with just enough water to submerge the doll. Now you just have to wait until 3 a.m. When the time hits, go to the bathroom, look at the toy and say, "You're it." Count to 10 and then go back to the bathroom, pick up the toy and say, "I found you," 3 times. Easy, right? As you're in the bathroom, stab the toy and put it back in the water. Tell the stuffed animal, "You'll be it." Now it's your turn to hide where you left a glass of salt water. At this point of the game is where things get a bit creepier. People report hearing voices, footsteps, and the TV may turn on and off. Wait a bit until it's complete silence again. Take a sip of the water and hold it in your mouth and bring the cup with you as you look around for the toy. At this point, the toy is no longer in the bathroom, so you need to search the whole house for it. Do not leave the house, do not turn off the lights, and keep everything locked, and be sure to finish the game under 2 hours or the spirit will become too powerful to stop. When you finally find the toy, spit the water out, pour the rest of the cup on the animal, then say, "I won," 3 times. Finally, be sure to burn the toy within 1 to 2 days. I don't know what would compel someone to play hide and seek alone, but there are the instructions. Sealing our number 8 spot, we have Gasha Dokuru. The Gasha Dokuru, or giant starving skeleton, is a rageful, mythical Japanese yokai that is said to be 15 times the size of a normal human, which could be around 90 feet tall. Shaq? This entity is born where there's a large amount of human bodies, whether it be a mass grave or a battlefield. This is where these spirits become angry due to the fact that they can't get proper burials. This usually happens from events such as a war, a famine, or plagues. Then the bones of these angry spirits form together, creating this one large skeleton. Despite their large stature, they still manage to sneak up on humans. They crush them in their hands and bite off their head to drink their blood. This creature will definitely give Attack on Titans a run for their money. The scary thing is, they don't even need to kill people nor drink their blood. They simply just enjoy doing it. They usually roam around midnight using the darkness as their cover. The only way you would know one is near you is from the sounds of bones rattling or strange ringing. Since Japan has less wars and plagues, these creatures have not been spotted. But when it does, I wonder how much Gasha Dokuru will rise. Showing that even our bathroom stalls aren't safe, at number 7 we have Akamanto. Think twice before using certain bathrooms in Japan, as you might run into Akamanto. Akamanto is a spirit in Japan that is said to appear to people in bathroom stalls. Usually the last stall of all stalls. And definitely be sure you have toilet paper in your stall, because that's how Akamanto gets his cue to enter. He's described as wearing a long red cloak with a mask to cover his face. He'll give you a choice between red and blue paper, and your answer will decide your fate. If you choose a red paper, he will cut your throat, causing all of your clothes to turn into a bright crimson color. However, the other option is not any better. If you choose the blue paper, he will strangle you, making your face turn blue. So you basically have 0 chance, because if you try to pick another color that he doesn't offer, he will kidnap you and bring you to his lair where it's unknown what he'll do to you. So is there any way to make it out alive? Well, the best way to answer Akamanto is to simply say, "I do not need paper," and he will leave you alone. Hey, I know you'll be stuck with no toilet paper, but at least you won't die. At least that's a good trade. The number 6 spot, we have Teke Teke. Teke Teke is a story of a woman named Kashima Raiku who lived in the city of Hokkaido, Japan. One night as she was waiting on the Meishin Expressway, a group of men decided to beat her up and leave her on the floor, barely conscious. With her little strength, Raiku would frantically call out for help. But since it was so late at the night, there was nobody around. After coming to the realization that no one was going to help, she began crawling her way back home. As she was crawling, she noticed that she was on a train track and got struck by an oncoming train. The train ended up severing her body in half. Legend says that she is still crawling with only half of her body while making the sounds of teke teke. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Kisaragi station. In 2004, a 2chan user named Hasumi posted on a thread asking for help because she got on the wrong train at the Shin Hamamatsu station. This was rather strange because she usually caught the same train after work, and trains in this station only go in one direction. She started getting anxious because she remembered the stops only being a few minutes between each station. But on this train, they were much longer. They even went through a tunnel, but her usual line didn't go through any sort of tunnel. She walked to the front of the car to ask the conductor for help, but the curtain was closed and no one answered. She then knocked on the door, but that's when the train suddenly stopped at Kisaragi station. As she left the train, she was filled with anxiety and fear. But as she tried to go back, the train's door shut on her. She told the other users on the discussion board of the stations, but they had all said that there was no such station located in Japan. She decided to exit the station and walk back along the tracks, even back through the tunnel she had gone under before. She reported hearing strange sounds like drums in the distance and a voice telling her that walking on the tracks is dangerous. As she grew more afraid, she turned back to see an old man with one leg, which then slowly disappeared right after. When she finally got out of the tunnel, a man came up offering for help and to drive her to the nearest station. This is when she posted on the thread for the last time, saying that the man was muttering to himself, then her phone died. She was never heard on the thread again. Chilling at our number 4 spot, we have Peko-chan. Peko-chan is the mascot of the Milky Candies, but her story is more sour than sweet. The story goes that Peko-chan was actually based on a young girl who passed away during the 1940s. The legend goes that during World War II, there was a huge food shortage in Japan. Because of this, many people, including women and children, were starving to death. So Peko-chan's mother decided to cut a piece of her own arm off and offered it to Peko to eat. This is the moment Peko-chan discovered how tasty human flesh was. In fact, she had never tasted anything so good in her life. She couldn't resist with such a piece, so she decided to kill her mom and eat her whole body. Ever since, she's been constantly craving human meat, living the rest of her days as a cannibal. At our number 3 spot, we have the Kone Kone. The legend arose in Japan where sightings of a creature are reported in rice fields or in an open sea. This creature resembles a tall white mannequin made of fabric, almost like an inflatable tube, but deadlier. Other than that, no one knows exactly what it looks like because everyone who saw it either went crazy or has died. There's a story where one summer, 2 brothers went to visit their grandparents in the countryside. They were playing outside when they noticed a figure in the distance, wiggling in the wind. But when the wind stopped, the figure kept on wiggling. Curious, the older brother took binoculars to see the figure, but as he did, he stopped breathing and turned blue with sweat running down his whole body. The younger brother asked what he saw, and the older brother responded that it's better not to know. But the voice that came out was not the brother's. Later that day, the older brother was found laughing uncontrollably, wiggling in the fields. All the way at our number 2 spot, we have Honeona. In Japanese mythology, the Honeona, or the Bone Woman, is a spirit whose face, hands, and neck appear to be that of a young, attractive female. However, the rest of her body bears no flesh at all. It's said that she uses her beauty to seduce unsuspecting men, where she would lure them into the dark and isolated areas. Because when they're alone, she reveals her true form and sucks her life force energy, leaving them as a pile of dust. In other accounts, the Honeona are said to be the spirits of a young woman who had died, but cannot move on from their past lovers. To their loved ones, they appear normal, but for everyone else, they appear as the Bone Woman. Taking our number 1 spot in our list, we have the Okiku doll. Let me start this off by saying that this haunted doll is worse than Chucky. This story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Aikaichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old sister Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono. His sister loved the doll so much that she even named it after her own name. These two would become attached together like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her, her family put up her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days, they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it was cut, it would keep on growing until it reached just above the knees, which happened to be the same place where Okiku's hair stopped. At a number 10 spot, we have the Kifune Shrine. This place is very well known as a beautiful sightseeing spot in Kyoto, Japan, but for many locals, the dark history makes them have a different perspective of the place. Kifune Shrine is known as the birthplace of a terrifying ritual known as the Ishunokoku Mari, which refers to placing a curse on someone by placing a nail through a straw effigy, which is sort of like a voodoo doll. Then you nail it onto a tree around the hours of 1 to 3 a.m. We did a 3 a.m. video, so you already know how cursed that time is. If anyone is caught watching this ritual, the person conducting the ritual must eliminate that person, or else the curse will reflect back onto them. The performer usually wears a white kimono, sandals, and places 3 burning candles on top of their head. If you visit the shrine to this day, you will find many trees with holes on it, presumably from the nails of those attempting this scary ritual. At our number 9 spot, we have the Awashima Shrine. There is no doubt Japan is a very beautiful place, meaning that most of the shrines I mentioned on this list are very visitable. So I had to mention Awashima Shrine to change your mind on that. This shrine contains over 20,000 dolls who are believed to be possessed from its past owners. The dolls will be left at the shrine as an offering from women to pray for fertility and for safe birth. Come on, look at this place. Tell me you would go here willingly. According to legend, Empress Zingu was journeying home from a war overseas. As she was on her way back home, a huge storm took over the seas and broke the boat partially. This caused the Empress to pray to the gods, and apparently they brought her back safely to Tomagashina. Here she would build the Awashima Shrine to thank the gods for their service. People believe that these dolls over time would develop souls, so the reason why many donate it is to get rid of the curse trapped inside of these dolls that caused many of the problems and issues within their own life. At number 8 spot, we have the Dashogun Shrine. This shrine was originally built by Emperor Kenmu in 794. It was originally built to break the evil coming from all sorts of directions, whether this be from physical enemies or spiritual beings. This became a place where people would go to pray for protection. Specifically, many would call for the god of the stars, Dashogun. Enshrined at the place are many Japanese figures fighting a beast named the Nu. A Nu is a Japanese yokai described as having the head of a monkey, the body of a raccoon dog, legs of a tiger, and a snake for a tail. Pretty terrifying, right? Because these creatures can also transform into a black cloud and fly all over the place. Back in the early years of its construction, it said that the current emperor sent out these powerful warriors to kill it and make the place peaceful at last. Except many believe the Nu is still out there near the shrine, with reports of seeing the creature in the forest surrounding the area. At our number 7 spot, with the Menenji Temple. Menenji Temple is located in Iwamizawa, Japan, and it was originally built in dedication to the Jodo sect of Buddhism. Despite its spiritual beginnings, the temple is now known for the cursed doll that lives within it. The story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Eikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old sister Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono on it. His sister loved the doll so much that she would even name it after her own name. These two would become so attached together like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her, her family put her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it would be cut, it would continue to keep growing. Eventually her family would move away but chose to keep the doll in the same place, thinking that Okiku would have wanted that. Now it resides in the Menenji Temple, where it's said that monks will cut the doll's hair regularly as it keeps on growing. At number 6 spot, we have the Sogenji Shrine. The Sogenji Shrine, also known as a Kappadera, is a Zen Buddhist temple in Tokyo. It got its name from a Japanese mythological entity known as the Kappa. And no, I don't mean that trashy clothing brand. I'm talking about these guys. Kappas are these human-like creatures, small in stature, with webbed hands and feet. It has a turtle shell on its back, and a beak and a saucer on their head, always seem to be filled with water. These creatures would just be known for their troublemaking. They would play games with both animals and humans, and in some cases, the Kappa would impregnate women and drown people in the rivers where they resided. Apparently, when the place was prone to flooding, the people of the area asked for the Kappa for assistance, and now many claim that the Kappas are still nearby. claiming the place as their own. There are several statues of the kappa littered around the shrine, but who knows if one of them turns out to be real. At the top of our list, we have the Zenkoji Temple. The Zenkoji Temple is a Buddhist temple located in the city of Nagano, Japan. The main temple of Zenkoji has a dark room created for spiritual purposes and acts like a shrine in a way. This dark room follows a pitch black tunnel underneath the temple that monks had supposedly hid the quote key to paradise. In order to do this, you need to hone your 5 senses and have complete focus while trying to navigate yourself through this area. This area is supposed to represent the journey between death and rebirth. It's very simple to understand how this represents the pursuit of enlightenment, which is only possible once you let go of your physical limitations and your concerns. People think that if you find the key, they will be saved, while others believe that if you fail, you will have a series of bad luck and unfortunate mishappenings. Regardless if you succeed or not, this room is bound to have a terrifying experience regardless. At number 4 spot, we have Mount Osor. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites, and for good reason. It's claimed by many to be one of the entrances to hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up a scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is the smell of ghosts and demons, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to Buddhist monks, they say that this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why many believe this is a spirit hub. Also around the area are these little jizzle statues, which were there to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. People who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to go easily through the afterlife. Except many of these pebbles are left broken, and many have placed the blame on evil demons in the area. There's also a festival at the shrine where blind women called Itaku bring messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. At number 3 spot, we have the Owa Nanari Tamaya Shrine. This shrine in Tokyo has one of the most famous ghost stories in all of Japan associated with it. The story goes that Owa was a very pure and faithful woman, married to a terrible man named Tamaya Lemen. This man killed her in order to marry a richer woman. While the accounts on how he killed her vary, this all include poisoning her with terrible consequences to her looks. Obviously, she wouldn't be keen on this whole new marriage thing, and she proceeded to ruin the marriage, making him kill his new wife and her family by making them look like her dead self, and finally killed him too. The shrine was built to represent Owa's angry spirit and it still rests south of the station in Tokyo. At number 2 spot, we're the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it is a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as a Sokushin Butsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and they are the bodies of priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All the mummies we see here are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. Just something about a body that is fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy, right? The process for the mummification would actually be pretty intense. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diets to a bare minimum. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, they would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation, in order to reach enlightenment. At number 1 spot, we have the Taki Shrine. This shrine is consumed in moss but looks very beautiful, but the story behind it completely ruins it. This shrine was established in the Teryaku era of Japan, which was around 900 AD. Legend goes that a man was hunting for yokai and fighting against sorcery in the region. When he was roaming the area, it would slowly get consumed by a dark black cloud. Unable to move further, the man prayed to the gods and fired an arrow up into the clouds. When the arrow came back down, the cloud drifted away, and the spot where the arrow hit is a supposed location of the Taki Shrine. Every now and then, the mountain will be filled with fog and mist, which only adds to the amazing atmosphere of the nature in the area, but it also has a little bit of creepiness in it. And it's also a time when most of the region's spirits seem to be resting. Many believe that many yokai are resting by the shrine, so it's best to visit this area when there's still light outside, because many people have gone missing when night hits.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, Ise Grand Shrine. Japan is globally popular for its shrine culture and has approximately 80,000 shrines. The most important among all of them is Ise Grand Shrine. It is one of the most expensive temples in Japan due to its architectural magnificence. To maintain the Shinto traditions dating back to the 8th century, this temple is rebuilt every 20 years, and that comes with $1 million price tag. However, you'd think spending that much money on something, you'd want people to see it and enjoy it, but unless you are a member of the royal family, you're forbidden to enter the hallowed halls of this ancient Japanese representation. Number 9, the forest. The Okigahara Forest, also known as the Sea of Trees, sits right along the edge of Mount Fuji, roughly a 2-hour drive west of Tokyo. At the entrance of the forest, you're greeted by a sign that reminds visitors that life is a precious gift from their parents. Okigahara's dark reputation has been around for decades. Legend has it that in the olden times when food was in short supply and the situation grew desperate, a family might take a dependent elderly relative, typically a woman, to a remote location and leave her to pass away. At first, the ghost visitors had claimed they saw in Okigahara were presumed to be the vengeful spirits of the old who had been abandoned to starvation, and the mercy of the elements. But that all began to change in the 1960s. More than 100 people who were not from the area surrounding Okigahara took their own lives there between 2013 and 2015. Countrywide, people who took their own lives there totaled roughly 24,000. These numbers do not include attempts people made. It is not recommended that you visit this place, because even if you're just going to see it and enjoy the scenery, you may get sucked in and you may take your own life yourself. Number 8. Inunaki Tunnel. The old Inunaki Tunnel is a spot of a horrific incident deep within the mountains of Fukuoka. In December of 1988, the charred remains of a man were found within this mountain tunnel. The perpetrators of this gruesome act are reported to be a group of teenage boys. The area also has a history that goes back over 1,000 years as a training grounds for Budapest practitioners, who claimed the area to be a spiritual hotspot of lost souls. These claims were later backed up by a modern spiritualist who visited the mountain area in the aim of recording a television special, but promptly refused to go further due to the foreboding spiritual atmosphere. The tunnel itself has been sealed off with concrete blocks, forbidding entry, but an opening in the top of the tunnel still allows entry for anyone foolish enough to climb over. The tunnel is no longer in use and far off the beaten path, meaning no assistance would be able to reach you in an emergency situation, so it is highly discouraged that you try visiting. Number 7. Takauka Unuma. This is certainly not a place to be visited now, but not for the reason you might expect. The story begins with Japan's rising bubble economy in the 1970s, in a rural northern part of Fukushima Prefecture, but the tale ended prematurely in 1986 and failed dreams never to be truly realized. Allegedly, after a few passings by people falling from the roller coasters, the park was shut down and multiple attempts to reopen the park all failed. Rather than demolish this area, it was just left to rust and fade out of the public consciousness. The decaying and dangerous structures were like a beacon calling out urban explorers who seemed to find the location popular. However, since 2018, the area has been mostly outfitted with solar panels, and all remains of the park attractions have disappeared. The legend still lives on as pictures and stories about the park continue to surface on the internet from time to time. But that is the first and last stop for anyone looking to test their courage in the park these days. Now at number 6, Iwo Jima Island. One of the Bonin Islands in the Pacific Ocean far south of the Japanese mainland, this island has forever been ingrained in the cultural consciousness of historical battlefields in World War II. However, it is also home to Mount Suribachi, a 161-meter high volcano that is listed as the most dangerous active volcano in the world, according to the University of Manchester. It is said that there is a chance of this volcano erupting sometime in the next 100 years, which would in turn lead to 25-meter high tsunami waves hitting the coast of both China and Japan, leading to a potential death toll in the millions. The ghost stories of it related to the 40-day battle waged on the island, in which many thousands of soldiers on both the US and Japanese side lost their lives. It currently holds a base for the Japanese self-defense forces, and those stationed on the island have reportedly encountered the spirits of the soldiers who lost their lives there many years ago. Whether you would like to or not, it is nearly impossible to visit the island, as it is restricted to military personnel only. Halfway number 5, tattoos. Tattoos in Japan are not often accepted. Yes, as they are legal, you are technically allowed to have them, but if you go into some places, you will be frowned upon or possibly even kicked out if your tattoos are showing. In 1872, tattoos of all kind were prohibited to help give an appearance of civilization and sophistication throughout the country. This resulted in an increase in arrests and tattoo artists moving their shops underground. It wasn't until 1948 that tattooing became legal again. However, the stigma around the art has remained. In 2015, a Japanese tattoo artist was arrested for violating the Medical Practitioners Act. Police visited his tattoo parlor in relation to a criminal case against a pharmacy where the person was listed as a client. Becoming a medical doctor costs a lot of time and money, said the person. Locals and tourists with tattoos showing are in fact banned from entering places like bathing houses, beaches, gyms, hot springs, and pools. So safe to say, cover your tattoos in Japan or you can say goodbye to a fun beach day and working out. Number 4, Nakagasuku Hotel. The ruins of this hotel is among the favorite terrifying attractions in Japan. The hotel was proposed as a luxury resort and just a little away from the castle of the same name. The hotel construction was opposed by a monk who said it would disturb the the holy site and graves in the area. But capitalist greed took over and the owner started building it. After several mishaps and workers' deaths, the construction was later stopped. In a bid to restart it, the owner promised to stay overnight at the hotel to prove it was safe, but instead he returned talking crazy in the morning and disappeared off the face of the earth. Even today, people can see lights and feel cold presence in the empty corridors of the hotel. Now at number 3, Mount Osari. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites. Many people are denied entry into this place, and it's for a good reason, because it's claimed by many people to be the entrances of hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up the scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is a smell of ghosts and devils, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to the Buddhist monks, they say this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why they believe this is the spirit hub. Around the area there are these little Jizo statues, which are used to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. Parents who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to easily go through the afterlife. Except many of the pebbles are left broken, and many people blamed it on evil demons in the area. They even have a festival at the shrine, where blind women call a taco, brings messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. Number 2, Hashima Island. Hashima Island in Japan is completely deserted now, but it was once the most densely populated regions on the planet, a hub for undersea coal mining. It was used in that capacity for almost a century, from 1887 until 1974. Around that time, petroleum started to take over and the coal capital of Japan was abandoned. The locals now know it as Gukujima or Battleship Island for its resemblance to such. Its spooky ruins are a trip for only the bravest to take. Now coming in at number 1, Gas Mask Island. South of Tokyo, you'll find Japan's Uzu Islands. On account of the active volcano and huge quantities of sulfur, it continues to emit between frequent eruptions. In the year 2000, according to Atlas Obscura, a series of eruptions caused the island to be evacuated. 5 years later, the levels of gas had disappeared enough for residents to be allowed back, but with a strict stipulation. They had to carry gas masks at all times, ready to be worn at a moment's notice, and they still do, as does everybody that dares to visit. So technically you can visit this place if you want, but you have to be wearing a gas mask to enter, and it is not recommended. Starting out this countdown at number 10, Tag. The opening scene of Tag is one of the most shockingly horrific moments in Japanese cinema, and is a perfect setup for the absolute carnage and confusion that follows. A young girl called Mitsuko finds herself battling between alternate realities, each with a unique set of horrors she must face. There is little to no explanation as the audience gets thrusted into a never-ending spiral of danger alongside Mitsuko, which makes the movie a heart-racing watch. Despite the endless world of horror seen in Tag, it is the true reality revealed at the very end that is the most terrifying. Now, if this movie name sounds familiar, it might be because the movie trended on TikTok around when it came out with the famously terrifying bus scene. We can unfortunately only show a short clip because it's from a movie, but does that scene not just give you goosebumps? Like, holy, talk about intense. Now at number 9, The Ghost of the Hunchback. Hajime Sato's 1965 Toei movie Hayden Samushi Atoko goes by several names in the West: The Ghost of the Hunchback, House of Terrors, and Satan's Pit. Regardless, they are all the same terrifying movie. The Ghost of the Hunchback is about a hunchbacked caretaker who presides over a forlorn mansion inhabited by the ghost of his previous masters. An unbelieving trio, a doctor, his assistant, and his niece, fail to heed the caretaker's warnings and are slaughtered horribly by the jealous occupants. Now moving on to number 8, The Curse. Fans of the found footage style horror need to look no further than Nori or The Curse. The film opens with an introduction to paranormal investigator Masafumi Kobayashi, who has disappeared during the process of making a documentary titled The Curse. The documentary then begins to play as viewers are left to uncover the secrets he left behind. Seemingly disconnected mysteries that involve strange and creepy events are tied together by the discovery of an old ritual that summons a demon named Kagutaba. Noroi is said to be disturbingly realistic, which makes it all the more terrifying. I found out the movie is free to watch on YouTube, but that's if you dare to watch this horrifying film. But it can also be found with better quality on Shudder. Now at number 7, House. The bizarre horror that is House is a hyperactive fever dream that takes place in the most deranged, creepy, haunted house to ever grace the big screen. Nobuhiko Obayashi's twisted fairy tale tells the story of 7 schoolgirls on a summer trip to an aunt's remote estate. The fantasy-like beginning takes a turn so deformed and uncanny that it's difficult to adequately describe. House is overflown with unbelievable scenes, people say. The scenes that take place in the haunted house are as gruesome, but they are just as exciting to watch. The movie came out in 1977. And nowadays, watching older horror movies don't really seem that scary because of all the CGI and everything we have now, but after seeing a 5-second clip of this movie, you're sure to have goosebumps. This movie is one of the most inventive and colorful horror movies to ever exist and truly must be seen to be believed. Now at number 6, Sadeko vs. Keiko. Yes, the vengeful ghosts of Ring and The Grudge are iconic. But if you've ever wondered which ghost is stronger, well, here's a movie that brings them together for the ultimate face-off and answers just that. We follow Natsumi, a woman who watches Sadeko's cursed videotape and realizes it's only a matter of time before Sadeko kills her. She tries to save herself by pinning Sadeko against Keiko, a malevolent spirit who resides in a haunted house, hoping they would kill each other and end the curse. The film takes the best parts of the two movies' antagonists and blends them together, capturing the dread and hostility perfectly. And funny enough, the movie seems very similar to Ring. Well, based on the trailer, that is, because I haven't seen the movie, but after seeing the spooky trailer, I might just have to give it a watch. It's creepy and fun and totally worth the watch, and the movie can be found on Amazon Prime, YouTube, and Shudder. Halfway at number 5, Uzumaki. Based on the horror mangaka Junji Ito's spine-chilling manga of the same name, this film's concept is just as eccentric as it is creepy. It's about a cursed town whose inhabitants are haunted by ominous spirals that drive the townspeople mad, and sometimes to the point where they take their own life. Our protagonists race to break the curse, but can it really be stopped? The strengths here are the ghastly body horror, the lack of standard backstory, lending to the sense of hopelessness, and the nightmarish, surreal imagery. A man crawls into a washing machine, people turn into snails, and your fingertips have spirals. Even the sky is cursed with spiral-like clouds. This is certainly not a town I'd personally want to live in, and based on the trailer, it looks very freaky and cryptic looking. At number 4, Dark Water. This is a classic that forever remains underrated and one of people's personal favorites. Yoshimi is a single mother in the midst of a divorce. To prove she is able to take care of her daughter, she moves the pair into an old rundown apartment building, where the haunting horrors begin. A dripping leak forms on the ceiling, black here appears in the tap water, and an extremely creepy child ghost. It's chilling with a touching mother-daughter relationship at its heart, but don't let that fool you because this movie is truly terrifying. And fun fact, this is based on a novel by Koju Suzuki, who is also the author of the Ring novels, and was directed by Haido Nakata, who also directed the unbelievably famous and scary movie Ring. Some even say it's Japan's saddest horror movie. Here at number 3, Corpse Party. The movie Corpse Party is based on the horror video game series of the same name. There's also an anime and manga too. It's set in a haunted school and is incredibly dark and blood-curdling, which is right up the alley for most big horror fans. It has everything: blood, gore, mystery, and ghosts. A group of high school students perform a charm called Sachiko Ever After to ensure they'll remain friends forever. Instead, they find themselves transported to a haunted elementary school with resentful spirits, and Sachiko herself, who's actually the psychopathic ghost of a little girl in a red dress. There's also an equally freaky sequel called Corpse Party Book of Shadows. Now coming in at number 2, Ring-You. Ring-You is a cult horror film of legendary status. Its prominence as one of the best horror films to come from Japan has not wavered over for more than 2 decades since its release. Ring-You subjects viewers to a deep-seated psychological attack that leaves them with a mysterious and lasting sense of doom. The story itself is deceptively unassuming. Watch a cursed videotape and die a gruesome death 7 days later. It's a masterful way director Hideo Nakata cloaks Ring-You in growing dread that makes it a superior film. The frightening jump cuts become implanted in your mind, and the metallic screeching will ring in your ears for days after watching. Of course, this one is good, but for me, I really like the newer remakes of Ring, but still, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend this one. Now coming in at number 1, The Grudge. It's impossible to talk about Japanese horror movies without mentioning Ju-on or The Grudge. The movie is disconnecting thanks to its non-linear narrative, but viewers can expect to encounter 2 terrifying restless spirits ready to torment anyone that enters their home. Everything about the film is sure to inflict sheer terror. The Grudge draws on horrors from both the real and paranormal, since the terrible crimes committed become the cause of the restlessly horrifying supernatural events. The creeping sense of a foreboding that builds throughout the movie lingers well after watching. I chose to put this at number 1 because I'm a big horror fan, but most horror movies don't actually scare me. But this one actually kept me up at night. I swear all I could hear when I tried to fall asleep was that creepy noise.
At At our number 10 spot, we have the Mongolian death worm. The Gobi Desert, located between Mongolia and China, is said to have the Mongolian death worm, otherwise known as the intestine worm due to its appearance of being fleshy and red in color. This 2 to 7 feet long creature has the ability to spit out venomous liquid out of its mouth, and if you even get close enough to touch the creature, it's believed that the entire body is covered in this sticky, poisonous substance that will kill you just on touch alone. And if that wasn't enough, it can even electrocute you in the same way Eel can. While movies of the creature depict it as this large, colossal being, it's believed to be a lot smaller at around 7 feet in its total length. But regardless, the fact that this creature can hide literally anywhere in the desert sands and come out basically whenever it wants, and it has no weaknesses, it makes it one of the most dangerous and scariest ones on this list. At number 9 spot, we have the Diaosi Gui. This mythical creature is also known as the hanged ghost, and it's said that the people who have taken their life through hanging or have been executed that way come back and become this vengeful spirit. They claim the spirit appears as a decaying corpse with a long red tongue that hangs far out of their mouth, never going back into their mouth. And let me tell you, these guys smell horrendous as well. So you could imagine how terrifying this would be to encounter. Except if you're a Kiss fan and you're used to this sticking tongue stuff. According to legend, these spirits will appear to unsuspecting people during night, usually by a tree or a building. Then they'll try to convince others to join them in the afterlife. So in China, it's best to avoid places where people have taken their life, because this is where these spirits tend to wander. If you decide to do the complete opposite, the creature will follow you around for your entire life, causing bad luck every corner of the way. At number 8 spot, we have the Akaname. The Akaname is straight out of Japanese myth. It's described to be this small goblin looking creature about the size of a child, except they're hideous. They have greasy, slimy hair, and their body is completely oily. If that didn't make you uncomfortable, maybe the fact that they use their long tongues to lick bathroom floors will. But don't worry, they won't appear in clean bathrooms, as their dirty long tongues have nothing to lick. Instead, they target bathrooms that have been neglected and are dirty. So people, do yourself and everyone a favor and clean your bathrooms. Please. They lick and devour any of the filth, grease, hair, and waste that they come across, and the Akaname also chooses to stay away from humans, but instead they creep in the darkness and multiply at rates comparable to a disease spreading. They come in both one-eyed and two-eyed variations, which only adds to the fact that these are grotesque creatures. So I stress this again, clean your bathroom so we can all avoid these type of problems, including stuff with these ugly guys. At number 7 spot, we have the Jiangshi, also known as the Chinese hopping vampire. The Jiangshi comes from a phrase meaning stiff corpse. They are psychic vampire zombies. Yes, you heard that right. Who feeds off a person's chi rather than their blood. And for those who don't know, chi is considered to be a person's life force, which means that it's the energy that flows throughout your entire body, basically giving you life in a sense. So unlike the vampires we have over here in the West, the Jiangshi prefers not to consume humans or our blood, and they also aren't able to walk, so they are seen hopping around with their hands out in the front of them to maintain their balance. Many believe these creatures are created following a violent death, an improper burial, use of supernatural powers, or you get bit by another one. Remember, they're vampires and zombies, so don't get it confused. This is a horror hybrid of the century. At number 6 spot, we're the Sigbin. Straight out of my home country is yet another disgusting and hideous creature. This creature is said to have the appearance of a half hornless goat and half kangaroo, but when I look at it, I think of a chupacabra, but worse. It has the ability to use its long kangaroo tail to whip others with the force, able to knock someone out. They lurk mainly in the night and are known to hunt anyone or anything they see. They will use their sharp teeth to suck out the blood out of their victims, or they'll use it to seek out children to take their hearts just to use for decorations. So pretty horrible stuff, I know, I'm sorry kids. When they do walk around, they actually prefer to walk backwards with their head tucked between their legs like this. Locals in the Philippines claim that some people capture them and keep them as guardians for their property or in these very large jars. I have no idea what my people are doing, but yeah, let's not do this. In the hump of our list, we have the Zhenglot. These are small creatures located in Indonesia, but mainly claim their presence specifically in Java. They take on the appearance of a deformed humanoid doll with long growing hair and long nails. The doll by itself causes no harm, but when you begin to feed the doll animal blood or even human blood, it will start to work as black magic. A Zhenglot is believed to belong to the vampire family because of its main nourishment comes from the blood of animals or humans. The owner of the Zhenglot must feed the creature with a drop of their blood each and every single day. If the owner fails to do so, it is believed that their loved ones will face dire consequences. The blood must not be fed directly to the mouth of the Zhengla, but instead be placed beside it. It's believed that the Zhenglas are the spirits of those who passed away after they had practiced black magic in order to obtain everlasting life. Except when they're met with death, the earth would refuse to accept their body, instead turning them into this hideous bloodthirsting creature. At number 4, we have the flying head. This one is definitely the strangest one on this list, but it's still scary, so bear with me. The flying head, or the Shurubotoshi, is one of Japan's most craziest mythical creatures because it's literally just a floating head. It's believed to be an ancient deity that literally is just a flying head that goes around and eats people. They prefer to attack humans by surprise by hiding on the top of trees or in places where you're completely alone. When they catch up to you, they will drop quickly to the ground like a stone, either squishing you to death or trapping you in its mouth to chew you right after. Either way, you will pass away. If you do manage to evade them, they will stop at nothing to get you, and will do so while laughing uncontrollably, which only makes this encounter that much more terrifying. At number 3 spot, we have the Taoti. These creatures from Chinese mythology are definitely one of the most hideous looking creatures from this list of creatures, and we know how beautiful China makes some of these creatures, so this one was just a surprise. They are considered to be one of the 4 evil creatures of the world due to its malevolence and destruction as a creature. If you ever wanted to see these boys in action, depiction of this creature would appear mainly on bronze artifacts, but that first glimpse of them on that movie was all we needed to know that these creatures are not good. At number 2 spot, we have the Tengu. If you ever seen this emoji, then you know what a Tengu somewhat looks like. These creatures live in the mountains and appear to have large feathery wings and wearing a monk robe. Based on the emoji, you already know that their face is red with a long nose and the head of a bird. Originally, the Tengu were seen as evil spirits that caused pure destruction and chaos everywhere they went. This was because Buddhist practices showed that the Tengu were demons and tricksters who opposed Buddha. Tengu were considered demons of death and destruction by Buddhists, but gradually softened into troublesome protectors of forests and mountains, which is the role they continue to play in Japanese folklore. I mean, they look pretty cool and I see it all the time every time I go on my keyboard, and it would be nice if they use them in a video game or something because they're pretty cool looking creatures. At number 1 spot, we're the Nian. To end our point, we got yet another Chinese mythical creature because there are just too many not to mention. The story of the Nian goes that they would feast on human flesh every single New Year's Day. On this day, they would come out of their hiding place in the mountains and raid villages, eat their crops, and when that wasn't enough, they would attack the humans. Except they would begin to notice that the creature would run away by the end of the night when they started to celebrate New Year's. They started to believe it was because they used a lot of the color red, which was the same color as the Nian, which could have acted as intimidation. They also noticed that fire and a lot of noise would scare away the creature, so every single year the festivals got bigger and louder to frighten the beast away for good. The Nian is described as being a flat-faced lion with the body of a bull and the horn of a unicorn, and ever since the Nian has been used during the festivals to commemorate the once terrifying creature. At number 10 spot, we have the White Lady of Balit Drive. Every country has their own version of the White Lady ghost, and the Philippines is no exception to that. The country started to dread and avoid Balit Drive since the 1950s, when stories about a white lady floating around its streets started to spread around the area. The story goes that a white lady is a student of the University of the Philippines. The woman was the victim to a horrific crime committed by a taxi driver who picked her up, which caused her to pass away. Now it's said that the ghost of the lady haunts that very street, and its preferred victims are cab drivers. Her ghost dresses up in a white gown, dressed with long hair covering her face like a veil. Drivers who drive on Balit Drive would often drive not knowing that the white lady was silently sitting in their back seat. The only way they find out about this is that they look in their rearview mirror, which they will find the lady in white staring back right at them. This is said to be the reason for all of the accidents on that street, so would you take your chances or would you just take the longer detour?
Now at number 9, the Romblon Triangle. If the North Atlantic has the so-called Bermuda Triangle, the Philippines also has something very similar, and it's called the Romblon Triangle, which is located in the Cebuano Sea with its 3 corners at Mindoro, Panay, and Masbate, in the province of Romblon. The triangle covers a very small area, but due to the countless marine disasters in this area, people started talking about the Philippines version of the Devil's Triangle. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard insists that the shipwrecks in the Romblon Triangle are due to the bad weather and technical failure, and nothing mystical. But with that many issues happening within that area, they won't be able to keep calling it bad weather for much longer. Unless it is actually bad weather, but I guess we won't know.
At number 8 spot, we have the My Way Curse. The My Way Curse, or might I say, the My Way Killings, is a social phenomenon in my home country, the Philippines. The Philippines has all these type of weird, creepy stories, but I swear it was just a way for our parents to keep us obedient. The curse is linked to the song My Way by Frank Sinatra. Oddly enough, since 2002, there have been unusually high numbers of death linked to this song, especially when people are singing it during a karaoke performance. I mean, this seems like a pretty strange coincidence, but it has been reported on news organizations all around the world, including the renowned New York Times. Due to the negative attention this phenomenon received, bars in the Philippines were completely compelled to totally remove it from their karaoke players. This song is still forbidden in many pubs today, and you risk being ejected from the bar altogether if you attempt to play it.
Number 7, flying coffin. It's normal to see a coffin, though it typically gives us the creeps and goosebumps, but seeing a flying coffin in the middle of the road at night? Well, that's a different thing. Filipinos suggest that the flying coffin is one of the most popular horror stories shared with people. This horror story was even featured in a Halloween special of a TV show. The story is about a man walking in the middle of the night and he sees a flying or floating coffin in the middle of the road, and it then started to quickly fly towards him and almost hit him in the head when all of a sudden it disappeared. This left him horrified, and the story is still known nowadays, especially during Halloween. This one could be true, but it also could maybe just be a campfire story.
At our number 6 spot, we have the Bao Bao. The Bao Bao, otherwise known as the grave robber, is rightfully named that. It's a terrifying humanoid that is known to steal corpses from funerals or a grave to consume them later on. Stories say that the Bao Bao is an undead creature with claws that can rip through flesh, along with razor sharp teeth and a long tongue to effectively consume humans. It uses its long tongue to lick the flesh and suck out the blood of its victims. It's said that once the Bao Bao finishes eating a corpse, it leaves the trunk of a banana tree in the coffin to create the illusion of a stolen corpse. He's often regarded as an aswang as well. For all you non-Filipinos, aswangs are these creatures that haunted all points of our lives. They're basically these humanoids who separate their lower half of the body in order to fly around and attack unsuspecting babies. Man, the monsters in the Philippines are very creative.
Halfway at number 5, the headless priest. It said that a student was studying late at night at a school library and heard the sound of chains being dragged. When she checked who was making the noise, she found a priest, a headless priest. The priests played a vital role in Philippine history. They were the ones who led the church, and they were also the ones who taught the students in class during the Spanish era. As their name suggests, these clergymen hang out in universities, graveyards, churches, and other places that feel spooky. They sometimes bring their heads with them and seem to be looking for them when they don't. As for their heads, people said that they're either Filipino revolutionaries during the revolution or Japanese soldiers during World War II, cut off the heads of these priests. Other stories about biblical figures whose lives were taken, like Saint John the Baptist, have also helped spread urban legends about priests.
All the way at our number 4 spot, we have the Clark Air Base Hospital. This is one of the few places deemed to be haunted, not just in the Philippines, but in the whole world by the Ghost Hunters International. Season 1, episode 20, named Unknown Soldiers, if you guys want to check it out. The hospital was used during World War II and the Vietnam War. It served as an asylum to the wounded and the dying American soldiers. This is why many people around the world claim it is the most haunted place in the Philippines. It's said that the traumas and countless deaths from those conflicts have left their mark on the spirit presence in the hospital. The place is currently abandoned, which gives it this more supernatural look to it, but it's said that if you visit the hospital and sleep within 8 hours after the visit, you experience extreme nightmares and intense lucid dreaming for about a week.
Now at number 3, Diplomat Hotel. The Diplomat Hotel is one of the go-to places for ghost hunters from different parts of the world. In fact, this hotel was featured in documentaries from different countries because of its dark history. The Diplomat Hotel is believed to be built during the early 1900s. This was built to become a vacation house for the Spaniards, priests, and nuns. This hotel was home to many happy and beautiful memories, but all of these changed during World War II. According to the stories, when the Japanese came, they gathered all the people in the hotel, separated them into different rooms, and took all of their lives. The people in the hotel were shot, beheaded, and stabbed. The worst part is the center of the hotel, where the fountain is located in the same place where the children were gathered and their lives were unfortunately taken. After World War II, the vacation house was converted into a hotel, but another tragic incident happened. A fire started in the hotel, and many guests who were staying there unfortunately passed away, which is another reason for the hotel to be haunted. The people working and visiting the hotel have experienced many scary encounters. Most of the people who visited the hotel have almost the same heavy feeling as many people are looking at them.
At our number 2 spot, we have the Malacanang Palace. This extravagant building was used for the official residence and workplace for the President of the Philippines. I covered a video on the White House, and I can confirm nothing good comes from government buildings. Literally nothing. This building is located in the Old Manila district of San Miguel, and this building was built all the way back in 1705, so it has a lot of history, including some dark moments. It used to be the home of of every nationality that colonized us, from the Spanish leaders to the Japanese leaders. All sorts of ghostly apparitions are said to reside in the areas, such as those of soldiers and children.
Now coming in at number 1, San Juanico Bridge. When Typhoon Yolanda hit the country and almost erased vast areas in Leyte and Tacloban, the over 40 years old San Juanico Bridge remains strong and steady. Impressive, right? Well, what could be the secret to its strength? Legend says that the longevity and strength of the San Juanico Bridge joining the two islands is due to the countless children sacrificed during its construction. Former First Lady Imelda Marcos had allegedly conspired the kidnapping of street kids or random babies from Leyte and Samar, and had offered them in a demonic ritual, mixing their blood with the concrete. At the time, Imelda headed the construction of the bridge, and reportedly performed the sacrifice upon a fortune teller who said children's blood was needed for the project's completion. Bodies of the sacrificed children were then thrown down the bridge. So whenever there are haunting incidences on the bridge, people will remember the story about the unknown children sacrificed here.
At number 10 spot, we have CRISPR babies. Imagine you could customize yourself however you like, including your height, your skin color, your voice, and maybe testosterone for men. Well, this is what Chinese researcher Ho Zhenku did. In 2018, the Chinese researcher made the world's first gene-edited baby using CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR was a new technology that allowed for DNA editing. Specifically, Ho was trying to encode an HIV co-receptor with the goal of making a set of baby twins resistant to the virus. Except this form of gene editing is more scary than that. Scientists say that it can be used for virtually any other modification. At our number 9 spot, we have the social credit system. In 2014, China released a renowned social credit system. The one most of us have heard about, you know, on TikTok, YouTube, everywhere has talked about it. But many of us don't understand how it works. It basically is a system that works with AI, CCTV, surveillance footage, and listening devices that either rewards you or takes away points. In a way, these points decide how valuable you are as a person in the society. The fear of having a low social credit score is nationwide because you may be put up on a massive billboard for everyone to see and mock. Examples of how you can increase your social credit score include talk about good about the Chinese government on social media, donating to charity, helping people around your community, teaching Chinese, basically anything that's good or good for China. To lose points, you can drive over the speed limits, litter around, play your music a little bit too loud, or even spending money on something that they deem is dumb purchases. And punishments for having low scores could mean bans from public transit, slowed down Wi-Fi, or even banned from any luxurious restaurants or hotels. The fact that they implemented the Black Mirror episode into real life is scary enough, but the fact that the government is constantly stalking and judging you is even more terrifying. At a number 8 spot, we have super drones. To increase their military presence in the open waters, China has unveiled a mothership named the Zuhaiyun, which carries over 50 advanced unmanned drones. So basically, it's an unmanned boat carrying autonomous drones, so no human is on board, and yet the ship is capable of destruction on a different level. Each drone is very intelligent. Each one knows what the other one is doing, so if these drones decide to attack a human, then all of the other drones would attack too. Warfare without the use of human soldiers is horrible. These drones can move at the speeds no human can reach. They can hit and detect at ranges no human could ever possibly think about. And they're able to be made just like that. Just imagine if they decide to put their entire funding on these drones and made a complete army. Elon said this about the situation.
You can make a swarm of assassin drones for very little money by just taking the Face ID chip that's used in cell phones and having a small explosive charge and a standard drone, and have them just do a grid sweep of the building until they find the person they're looking for, ram into them and explode. You can do that right now. No new technology is needed. Right now.
At our number 7 spot, we have the artificial sun. Located at the Institute of Plasma Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Hefei, China, lies the sun. But Andrew, the sun is in outer space, not in China. Sorry, my bad. The artificial sun. Sounds pretty terrifying on the surface. Just imagine how hot the sun is and how much power is contained within that. Fortunately, their purpose was for something else well needed in the future, and that is energy. There is no question we're running out of fossil fuels, and all the other methods we have tried are just not sustainable over long periods of time. China then created the sun to unlock clean and limitless energy. Then in this year, they were able to reach a record high of 126 million degrees Fahrenheit at its core. And for those who don't know, that's 5 times hotter than the sun. They needed this core so hot because this intense pressure and the high temperature make atomic nuclei fuse together, which creates new elements or energy. Except in this case, this sun could make limitless energy. At number 6 spot, we have AI supremacy. China has been leading the world in the development of artificial intelligence for years now. China has also made significant headway in developing practical applications of AI. In particular, the country is making major strides in self-driving cars, facial recognition, and voice recognition, especially used with their social credit system I mentioned above. But should we be worried? Yes and no. AI is good for its various uses, but in the hands of the wrong people, AI could mean the end of our civilization. And in more scary news, according to the Telegraph, the Institute of Artificial Intelligence at HEFI, Comprehensive National Science Center, created an AI program that could allegedly analyze brainwaves and facial expressions to gauge whether a person is loyal to the Chinese Communist Party, basically claiming that it could read our minds. Right in the hump of our list, we have supersonic missiles. China has the second largest budget on their military, so best know they're chasing USA in the arms race, especially in the missile arms race with the recent developments of a hypersonic missile. For those who don't know, hypersonic missiles are these missiles that can travel between 5 to 25 times the speed of sound, which makes them increasingly hard to hit, along with the fact that they can operate in a different region of the atmosphere. To put it in perspective, slower subsonic missiles travel a bit lower, and intercontinental ballistic missiles are a bit higher, which makes these guys right in the middle region where many countries don't have the capability to detect. This summer, China has had claim that they sent hypersonic missiles out and it went around the world. The scary thing is that Russia has claimed their hypersonic missiles are able to carry nukes around the world, and China is only growing their nuclear arsenal as we speak, with many estimating that they would have about 1,000 warheads by the end of the decade. At number 4 spot, we have facial recognition. I elaborated about this on the past points, but I want to show you guys just how scary facial recognition software is. At any given time, China's CCTV surveillance cameras can detect a person, who they are, what family they came from, what crimes they committed, what they do for work, and obviously their social credit score. China's facial recognition system logs literally every single Chinese citizen, and they have a population of 1.4 billion people, meaning that database is probably massive. China has also been accused of using this to commit the atrocities done against the Muslims in the country. They did this by using the same AI to locate Muslims within the crowds and later approach them for questioning. Being watched by the government on all your action definitely affects the behavior of a human. So in a way, this technology is controlling the population to act a certain way deemed appropriate by the Chinese government. Guess wearing hyper-realistic mask is the new thing to do in China. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have an EMP. We mentioned hypersonic missiles in my last points, but they also have the capability to carry EMPs. EMPs, or electromagnetic pulse, is an intense electric burst that damages electronics over a given area. It acts like a giant magnet, breaking everything electronic along its path. This would mean a complete shutdown of power grids, and it can even corrupt the data inside of hard drives, which is detrimental if used on government buildings and areas. Basically, this could cause cities to be in complete darkness. Although it doesn't do anything to humans directly, the issue is much bigger than that. Have you ever spent a day without internet or power? How many issues did you have initially? Now imagine that at a larger scale where your government is in complete darkness as well. Sounds like a huge threat. At number 2 spot, we have biological warfare. Many have claimed that the coronavirus originating from Wuhan, China was actually a biological weapon they released to cause global panic. Allegedly, Chinese military scientists were already looking in 2015 how to create a weaponized biological weapon based on documents obtained by the US State Department. Although China declined any sort of allegations towards releasing COVID on purpose, it's widely known that China is notorious for lying and hiding everything not from just the world but their own citizens. After seeing how the world reacted to the pandemic, biological warfare seems like the best way to control citizens and cause international panic. So whatever China did, it worked. At number 1 spot, we have stronger military planes. As I mentioned earlier, China is advancing their military very quickly after pouring in more and more money every single year. One of their military advancements include the J-20 fighter jet, and it was made with a purpose to combat the American fighter plane, the F-22 Raptor. Notorious for its stealth, speed, and agility, the J-20 is capable of reaching speeds up to 2,000 kilometers per hour, but they are not known for the speed. Instead, the Chinese government emphasized the stealth component, making it an effective long-range interceptor. They have currently built an arsenal of around 200 of them, which are all functional and ready for a battle. General Wilsbash discussed and praised another one of Chinese planes named the KJ-500, mentioning their features of long-range air-to-air missiles and how that greatly changes the playing field in the air. At our number 10 spot, we have booby traps. This war was infamous for Vietnam's use of guerrilla warfare on on the US troops, but this came largely due to the fact that Americans invaded, locked, and loaded. Despite what many believe, the US outgunned and outmanned the communists, so they needed to find other ways to fight them. And their response was these intricate booby traps. These things were devastating, and just by the looks of it, I understand why US troops' morales were dropped completely down the drain after running into these. The jungle terrain was hard enough having to deal with hiding soldiers and underground tunnels, but imagine walking and running into some of these traps. Some include the punji sticks, which were these sharpened bamboo coated in either poison, feces, or even urine, which could cause immediate infection if stabbed. Another one is the cartridge trap. When soldiers stepped on this trap, a nail acting as a firing pin shoots bullets straight up at the victim. We also have the mace, which is a tripwire trap that triggers a 40-pound spiked ball that swings from a tree and gets stuck onto its victims. These were only a small list of the booby traps contained within these dense jungles. I feel like I should make a top 10 on this, but if you guys are interested to see, here are some other traps. Terrifying, right? At number 9 spot, we have Operation Wandering Soul. The sounds coming from the Vietnam War definitely ranks one of the highest in terms of pure horror. With the Viet Cong hiding in the dense jungles, nowhere to be seen, Americans knew that they needed to bring their morale down without the use of firearms. So in the middle of the night, they would commence Operation Wandering Soul. This is a way for Americans to demoralize the Viet Cong by playing eerie sounds and altered voices on speakers. These sounds were supposed to mimic a wandering soul because in Vietnamese culture, if a proper burial is not done, the soul of the deceased will wander the earth as a malevolent spirit. And during the Vietnam War, many soldiers didn't get a proper burial. The most famous of their recordings was named Ghost Tape Number 10, and the best way to explain it is just to play it for you guys. At number 8 spot, we have Agent Orange. With the jungle being an issue for American soldiers, they decided to use a controversial weapon known as Agent Orange. I warn you, this one is pretty cruel. Agent Orange was a herbicide mixture which contained a dangerous chemical known as dioxin. For those who don't know, dioxin is extremely toxic and can cause skin lesions, developmental problems, immune system damage, and can cause cancer. They estimate that around 3 million Vietnamese people had been affected by Agent Orange during the war, with a recorded of up to 150,000 children born with serious birth defects due to this chemical. Other than the lives this chemical took, the worst part about this was that the dioxin could remain in the soils for decades. This has caused Agent Orange to have detrimental effects to this day. After seeing its destructive power, the US decided to ban Agent Orange in 1971. They took it to the Johnston Atoll and destroyed the last one in 1978. At our number 7 spot, we have My Lai Massacre. This could possibly be one of America's worst war crimes they have ever committed, so it's pretty dark, just for the warning. On March 16, 1968, a platoon of US soldiers brutally massacred a total up to 347 unarmed civilians at My Lai. They were told inside that Viet Cong were in the area, but when they arrived there, they weren't there. Despite no sign of hostility, Lieutenant William Calley gave the orders for them to open fire on the villagers. The victims included men, women, children, and even infants. After they violated and mutilated the villagers, they went on to burn the village along with slaughtering all of their livestock. It was a complete war crime. It wasn't until an army pilot named Hugh Thompson was walking when he noticed bodies and bodies of civilians as he approached the gunfire. But as he approached the gunfire, he noticed that it was his own comrade shooting. In a change of events, Hugh gave them the orders to stop or he would open fire on them. A total of 26 soldiers were charged with criminal offenses, but only William Calley would be convicted and found guilty of taking the lives of 22 villagers. He was given a life sentence. This event will remain a huge stain on the US military for a long time. At a number 6 spot, we have the Ace of Spades. Another example of psychological warfare done by the US was the Ace of Spades. And yes, I'm talking about the playing card. So for background info, the US Airborne Division used to put an Ace of Spades on their helmet for good luck. Fast forward to the Vietnam War, and the US soldiers made it a tradition to leave an Ace of Spades on the helmets of deceased Vietnamese soldiers. Soon the card would be associated with death to both the Vietnamese and the Americans. Eventually, as more Viet Cong saw this happening, their morale would go down, and the Americans knew this. So Charlie Company asked the US playing card company to supply them with crates filled with the Ace of Spades cards, which were labeled as Bicycle Secret Weapon upon arrival. And they used all these cards and they dropped them all over Vietnamese villages and jungles to frighten them. The Americans would continue to use this to taunt them by keeping it on their helmet as an anti-peace sign. This card would be later known as the Death Card. Right in the hump of our list, we have napalm. The Vietnam War had its fair share of destructive weapons, but nothing comes close to napalm, which would have been the worst weapon used in a war since the atomic bomb. Napalm, in simple terms, is basically liquid fire or a firebomb fuel gel mixture. It would often have a gelling powder composed of naphthalene and palmitate mixed with gasoline to form a sticky combustible substance. substance. Its sticky nature is the reason why it was so devastating when it released. The substance would stick onto its victims all while burning them alive, or at least causing 4th or 5th degree burns. The area napalm can cover up to 2,500 square yards, which would be completely engulfed in fire. The reason for these bombs in the first place was to support ground troops and to demoralize the enemy. Burning alive has got to be one of the worst ways to go, and seeing this fire would literally be seeing hell on earth. It eventually got banned in 1980 by the United Nations and listed as a war crime. Glad to know this one is gone, but the fact we got to see its powers is terrifying for the future. At number 4 spot, we have the AK-47 over the M16. During the war, American troops would abandon their American-owned M16 assault rifles to use the Viet Cong's AK-47 instead. This was a reason because the M16 was just not as reliable as the AK-47. First, the US changed their ammunition sizes without notifying, and it caused a lot of these guns to jam at pretty random times, which you could imagine would be pretty inconvenient in a gunfight. Second, the M16 couldn't be handled in jungle terrain. It would regularly jam when mud seeped into the gun. I mean, let's compare the two. The AK-47 is a 7.62mm gas-operated assault rifle with the capability to shoot up to 600 rounds per minute. It's claimed to be the most powerful due to the fact it doesn't break or even jam or even overheat. I mean, I don't even need to mention the M16, it has nothing compared to the AK-47. At number 3 spot, we have the Coochie tunnels. Deep inside the jungles were not only booby traps, but a system of underground tunnels for the Viet Cong to hide and move around unnoticed. These were known as the Coochie tunnels. These were a network of underground tunnels stretching more than 124 miles long. Although these tunnels were known internationally from the Vietnam War, Vietnamese did this well before, back in the 1940s during the War for Independence from the French. However, it wasn't until the Vietnam War where the tunnels would be dug for miles, with reports saying that the tunnels travel from the outskirts of Saigon all the way to the Cambodian border. These tunnels were by far anywhere near safe. Not only did you have to worry about the tunnels collapsing due to the poor construction of it, there would be snakes and scorpions and other booby traps inside of these tunnels. It's said that 45,000 Vietnamese men and women passed away defending these tunnels during the war. At number 2 spot, we have the massacre at Hue. Hue was one of the longest and bloodiest bouts during the Vietnam War, lasting a total of 26 days. During that time, up to 6,000 civilians and prisoners of war were abused, tortured, and executed at random. The Viet Cong believed this to be a cleansing of the area to anyone who opposed the rule and those who were invading their country. This battle was part of the Tet Offensive, which is when North Vietnam launched a grand-scale assault on every city in South Vietnam. The Viet Congs had a total of 80,000 troops ready before this assault, and despite the Americans knowing about this prior, they were still caught off guard. At a number 1 spot, we have Welcome with Flowers. The earliest Americans participating in the Vietnam War worked for the Office of Strategic Services, which served as the CIA's forerunner. As early as 1954, they were assisting the French and Southern governments of Saigon. Marines made their first official ground landing in Da Nang in 1965, beginning the first formal ground operation. Instead of a D-Day invasion, local women and flowers were welcomed to the troops. This would forever be eerie because of what happened following this event. The Vietnam War was brutal for both sides, and this side of friendliness is so uncharacteristic of the time. Who knows, the Vietnamese girls who put the flowers on the US soldiers could have been the future victims of their firearms, making this one the top of our list. At a number 10 spot, we have the Kifune Shrine. This place is very well known as a beautiful sightseeing spot in Kyoto, Japan, but for many locals, the dark history makes them have a different perspective of the place. Kifune Shrine is known as the birthplace of a terrifying ritual known as the Ishunokuku Mari, which refers to placing a curse on someone by placing a nail through a straw effigy, which is sort of like a voodoo doll. Then you nail it onto a tree around the hours of 1 to 3 a.m. We did a 3 a.m. video, so you already know how cursed that time is. If anyone is caught watching this ritual, the person conducting the ritual must eliminate that person, or else the curse will reflect back onto them. The performer usually wears a white kimono, sandals, and places 3 burning candles on top of their head. If you visit the shrine to this day, you will find many trees with holes on it, presumably from the nails of those attempting this scary ritual. At our number 9 spot, with the Awashima Shrine. There is no doubt Japan is a very beautiful place, meaning that most of the shrines I mentioned on this list are very visitable, so I had to mention Awashima Shrine to change your mind on that. This shrine contains over 20,000 dolls who are believed to be possessed from its past owners. The dolls will be left at the shrine as an offering from women to pray for fertility and for safe birth. Come on, look at this place. Tell me you would go here willingly. According to legend, Empress Xingu was journeying home from a war overseas. As she was on her way back home, a huge storm took over the seas and broke the boat partially. This caused the Empress to pray to the gods, and apparently they brought her back safely to Tomagashina. Here she would build the Awashima Shrine to thank the gods for their service. People believe that these dolls over time would develop souls, so the reason why many donate it is to get rid of the curse trapped inside of these dolls that caused many of the problems and issues within their own life. At number number 8 spot, we have the Dashogun Shrine. This shrine was originally built by Emperor Kanmu in 794. It was originally built to break the evil coming from all sorts of directions, whether this be from physical enemies or spiritual beings. This became a place where people would go to pray for protection. Specifically, many would call for the god of the stars, Dashogun. Enshrined at the place are many Japanese figures fighting a beast named the Nu. A Nu is a Japanese yokai described as having the head of a monkey, the body of a raccoon dog, legs of a tiger, and a snake for a tail. Pretty terrifying, right? Because these creatures can also transform into a black cloud and fly all over the place. Back in the early years of its construction, it said that the current emperor sent out these powerful warriors to kill it and make the place peaceful at last. Except many believe the Nu is still out there near the shrine, with reports of seeing the creature in the forest surrounding the area. At our number 7 spot, with the Menenji Temple. Menenji Temple is located in Iwamizawa, Japan, and it was originally built in dedication to the Jodo sect of Buddhism. Despite its spiritual beginnings, the temple is now known for the cursed doll that lives within it. The story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Eikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old sister Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono on it. His sister loved the doll so much that she would even name it after her own name. These two would become so attached together like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her, her family put her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it would be cut, it would continue to keep growing. Eventually her family would move away but chose to keep the doll in the same place, thinking that Okiku would have wanted that. Now it resides in the Menenji Temple, where it's said that monks will cut the doll's hair regularly as it keeps on growing. At number 6 spot, we have the Sogenji Shrine. The Sogenji Shrine, also known as a Kappadera, is a Zen Buddhist temple in Tokyo. It got its name from a Japanese mythological entity known as the Kappa. And no, I don't mean that trashy clothing brand. I'm talking about these guys. Kappas are these human-like creatures, small in stature, with webbed hands and feet. It has a turtle shell on its back and a beak and a saucer on their head, always seem to be filled with water. These creatures would just be known for their troublemaking. They would play games with both animals and humans, and in some cases, the Kappa would impregnate women and drown people in the rivers where they resided. Apparently, when the place was prone to flooding, the people of the area asked for the Kappa for assistance, and now many claim that the Kappas are still nearby, claiming the place as their own. There are several statues of the Kappa littered around the shrine, but who knows if one of them turns out to be real. At the hump of our list, we have the Zenkoji Temple. The Zenkoji Temple is a Buddhist temple located in the city of Nagano, Japan. The main temple of Zenkoshi has a dark room created for spiritual purposes and acts like a shrine in a way. This dark room follows a pitch black tunnel underneath the temple that monks had supposedly hid the quote key to paradise. In order to do this, you need to hone your 5 senses and have complete focus while trying to navigate yourself through this area. This area is supposed to represent the journey between death and rebirth. It's very simple to understand how this represents the pursuit of enlightenment, which is only possible once you let go of your physical limitations and your concerns. People think that if you find the key, they will be saved, while others believe that if you fail, you will have a series of bad luck and unfortunate mishappenings. Regardless if you succeed or not, this room is bound to have a terrifying experience regardless. At number 4 spot, we have Mount Osor. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites, and for good reason. It's claimed by many to be one of the entrances to hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up a scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is the smell of ghosts and demons, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to Buddhist monks, they say that this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why many believe this is a spirit hub. Also around the area are these little jizzle statues, which were there to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. People who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to go easily through the afterlife. Except many of these pebbles are left broken, and many have placed the blame on evil demons in the area. There's also a festival at the shrine where blind women called Itaku bring messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. At number 3 spot, we have the Owa Nanari Tamaya Shrine. This shrine in Tokyo has one of the most famous ghost stories in all of Japan associated with it. The story goes that Owa was a very pure and faithful woman, married to a terrible man named Tamaya Lemon. This man killed her in order to marry a richer woman. While the accounts on how he killed her vary, this all include poisoning her with terrible consequences to her looks. Obviously, she wouldn't be keen on this whole new marriage thing, and she proceeded to ruin the marriage, making him kill his new wife and her family by making them look like her dead self, and finally killed him too. The shrine was built to represent Owa's angry spirit and it still rests south of the station in Tokyo. At our number 2 spot, we're the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it is a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as a Sokushin Butsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and they are the bodies of priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All the mummies we see here are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. Just something about a body that is fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy, right? The process for the mummification would actually be pretty intense. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diets to a bare minimum. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, they would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation, in order to reach enlightenment. At number 1 spot, we have the Taki Shrine. This shrine is consumed in moss but looks very beautiful, but the story behind it completely ruins it. This shrine was established in the Teryaku era of Japan, which was around 900 AD. Legend goes that a man was hunting for yokai and fighting against sorcery in the region. When he was roaming the area, it would slowly get consumed by a dark black cloud. Unable to move further, the man prayed to the gods and fired an arrow up into the clouds. When the arrow came back down, the cloud drifted away, and the spot where the arrow hit is a supposed location of the Taki Shrine. Every now and then, the mountain will be filled with fog and mist, which only adds to the amazing atmosphere of the nature in the area, but it also has a little bit of creepiness in it. And it's also a time when most of the region's spirits seem to be resting. Many believe that many yokai are resting by the shrine, so it's best to visit this area when there's still light outside, because many people have gone missing when night hits.